remembered you. You used to work in Dallas, and you used to review movies as well.
Yeah, I had a little on my blog, which still exists, and I still write on. But I love film criticism as an art form unto itself, and so I for a brief period was a member of the DFW Film Critics Association.
I remember your name, but I don't remember me. I've been doing.
I probably looked different then. I had long hair.
It was all okay.
But yeah, I kind of stopped doing that because at a certain point I was like I was spending so much time writing reviews that I wasn't working on movies.
Oh no, the thing.
Put the cart before the horse there, so I decided to get back to what I really wanted to do.
Well, you've proven to all of us that that's what you should be doing. This is really a brilliant film. It's funny, I went into it because I talked to a buddy the night before, and he had said, I was really looking forward to it, and I liked it, but I had a problem with the ending, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll watch it. Boy, I don't know what the heck he was talking about, because the way that this all builds to that ending, I don't know where it was going to go from there. That's exactly where it was all heading, and it's so heartbreaking. I remember I really want to see it in the theater, but I had to watch it at home. Mm-hmm. And when it was done, I just kind of sat there like, wow, I'm emotionally taxed, and I'm supposed to go somewhere right now. I'm just gonna sit here and take this in for a minute. And I was, teared up, and it's just a brilliant movie that flows really well, a lot like Malick, but a lot more dialogue. I keep saying kind of like old Malick, like Badlands or Days of Heaven. It's just wonderful. Is this even your script? I didn't even look. Is it you?
Yeah.
Did you write it?
Yeah, it's all
fantastic movie.
Thank you. I'm glad that the ending worked for you, even though it didn't for your friend.
Yeah. That's when you do these kind of movies. That's kind of inevitable.
No, it's like there's going to be plenty of people who are on the right wavelength, and there are things that aren't going to work for everybody, and that's fine. But I tried to make something that was distinct and that had its own personality, and for the people that it works for, I'm really glad that it operates on the wavelength that I intended.
Well, it certainly does. And it flows like nobody's business.
That's great. I mean, that's a word that I used on set. I always am it's got to feel like this. I'm constantly just using my hands because I can't find the words to describe what I was trying to do. But yeah, the rhythm and the flow of it was something that was very important. And the whole movie, it's a very simple story. It's a very old-fashioned story and a classic story, but it's something that I wanted to kind of approach in a new way and to let the tone take precedence over the plot. And a big part of that is the way the scenes all kind of flow together. And I'm a big fan of movies where not much happens. I like complicated movies too, but when movie's can completely capture you in like a very minimal amount of plot and just let things that, little things feel significant, that's really important to me. And I really love trying to just find ways to dwell on those things that I like and that I respond to without feeling like I'm spending too much time on it.
What was the process going from doing shorts to this? How much, obviously more writing, but you've also written some features and helped out with features like Pit Stop. Mm-hmm. What was it like writing your own feature, though, compared to when you're writing Pioneer and St. Nick?
I'd written a lot of scripts before this one, and none of they just, for whatever reason, I didn't make them, or they weren't very good, or you write a lot of bad things to get to the good ones, as they always say. And then with St. Nick, my first feature, I didn't write a script at all because I wanted to I kind of wanted to get out of the mode of relying on scripts at all. So I made that film without one because I still claim to have written it because when you make a movie, you write it, as they always say, 3 times. You write it in paper, then you write it on set, and then you write it again in the editing room. And if you remove the first version of that, you're sort of forced to figure out what it is you were trying to say in the moment on the set and to trust your instincts a lot more. And that was a really valuable learning process, both in short films and then in the feature in St. Nick, to do that. And then after I made St. Nick, I felt ready to go back to a script again. And so I wrote this one. But I still, I love scripts as a literary form. I love writing things that, it's an interesting medium because it's something that no one will ever really read once the movie's made. It's going to just be, it's a template, but for the brief time that it exists as something that people follow as a Bible, while you're shooting the movie and while you're leading up to making it, I love writing things that read well, and it's a fun process. But once we start shooting it, my goal is always to throw it away and to not rely on it because you write it and you internalize it, and everybody gets the idea of what the movie's going to be and what it's going to be about, and then you can kind of just like riff on it from there. Like you've got the platform, you've got the parameters in which you need to operate, but beyond that, there's so much that you can discover in the moment, and that's like another reason why I wanted to tell a very simple story was because you could find these little things on the day that you wouldn't have necessarily expected, or if you were trying to stick too closely to the script, you wouldn't have had the time to discover it, and those are things that matter to me.
So would you always do your own scripts? Would you think about working with someone else's? Or?
That's something that I'm dealing with a lot right now.
They want you.
I'm writing 3 scripts right now for that are things I want to make, but then like there's a couple things that have been sent. A lot of things have been sent to me, and I say no to most of them. But there's one that I liked, and I was like, well, if I rewrote it, I would do it. But I think it's not so much a matter of like an ego thing. It's not that I want to control everything. It's just that I have like a distinct way of looking at things, and I can recognize that. Like and another script might be great, and it might be a perfect script, but it might be just to the left of my perspective. And so I'd have to get in there and just like yank it over here to where it makes sense to me. And that's something I'd be totally willing to do. Like I would if I found like the script I'm talking about, like if that one worked out, I would totally do that. And it would ultimately, feel very much like my movie because I would be able to just rein it over into the direction that I need it to be in. But I would love to also to find a script that's 100% my perspective that would just save me a lot of work. But I've yet to do that, and I don't know if that's possible. I think to get to know a piece of material, I would have to just dig into it that way. So.
How did you? Sorry, go ahead. How did you get this cast together? Because you've got so many big names, and then you've got like smaller parts like Charles Baker, who's in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I think that's Skinny Pete, but it was darkly lit enough that I wasn't quite sure. Then you've got Rami Malek, who's in it as well. So how did you put this whole cast together?
The way I approached the movie was, I was going to make it a very small, low budget movie, and I wasn't planning on trying to get big actors attached to it because I felt that was, that's one way to get a movie financed. But I've always been of the opinion that I'd rather make movies for no money and get them made faster. And have more control over it than to make them for bigger budgets with actors who bring money and such. But at a certain point, that's how I was planning on making this movie. And at a certain point, the script just sort of got some attention, and it was circulated amongst talent agencies, and people started to read it and wanted to meet. And at a certain point, I had an opportunity to say I was asked, who would you want to be in this movie? You could cast anybody. And Casey Affleck was right at the top of the list. He was the first person I thought of that would be good for Bob. And then I was still convinced that I should cast someone who was unknown for Ruth because I didn't want anyone with baggage. I didn't want anyone that had been too associated with another role. I was thinking of like Jennifer Lawrence when she did Winter's Bone. No one knew who she was, and that was a great place for that character to come from. And Rooney's agent wrote me and asked if I wanted to send it to her, and my first thought was, well, Dragon Tattoo comes out next week. There's no way she's never going to do this tiny little movie. And he said, no, she probably will really like this. If you want to send it to her, we will. And I was thinking about it and realized that, between Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Social Network, I had no idea what she actually looked like. And I felt that probably no one had any idea what she actually looked like or what she was actually like. And also those two roles are so different. And that she was able to convincingly play someone from Sweden or Norway or wherever that movie takes place, and have the accent and to transform herself so thoroughly. I felt, she probably could play a girl from small town Texas in the 70s and get away with it, and no one would be the wiser. And so she read it, and she watched my short film Pioneer and wanted to meet, and then said yes. And so I met Casey first and met her, and then I met Ben, and they all just agreed to do it. And it was a quick and painless process, to be honest. Yeah. And Charles Baker was someone I already knew from, because he used to live in Fort Worth up until recently. And he just came out and read for a bunch of different parts. And I was like, I know you're going to be in this movie somewhere. We just try. We'll figure out which one. And And Rami Malek, like I had not seen him in anything at that point. The Master hadn't come out yet, obviously, and
You didn't see Breaking Dawn.
I did see it. I did see it. I've seen every Twilight movie in theaters and read all the books.
Really? Okay.
But he submitted a tape for the part that Nate Parker plays, and we'd already cast Nate Parker. But his tape was so good, and I had no idea who this guy was. I was like, this guy is amazing. And so I wrote him. I was like, we already cast this part. Would you please play this other part at the end of the movie? And he thankfully said yes, and he's amazing.
Yeah. Richard Jackson is a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Great. Yeah.
And unfortunately, we did not get the front of his face in the movie, but
his
you hear.
voice, I just stopped everything. I went, oh my gosh, Richard didn't tell me. I just talked to him.
And that's
he
his.
didn't tell me he's it.
All that stuff he's doing. He's telling a true story. I had a little bit of dialogue, but I was like, can you just talk about like home repair or something? And he's like, well, this one thing happened once. I was like, that's perfect, just do that. And we actually that dialogue that he has continues to that whole scene, like because it was just so good that when I was editing, I just like kept having him talk through. They kept letting the dialogue come back.
It was great. I loved it.
I felt bad that we had this motif, like we weren't showing the faces of anyone other than the main characters, so I felt bad for all the actors who came in. And
he was the chicken farmer in No Country for Old Men, and he looks exactly like a chicken farmer. But actually, before he became an actor, he was a nuclear scientist.
Oh, that's so
And
crazy.
the chicken farmer was perfect.
And I think he was wearing the same, like unintentionally, the costume designer had the wardrobe she had for him was exactly what he wore in No Country for Old Men.
How was your experience as a DP, as an editor, helped kind of shape your vision? Because compared to, like, especially Pioneer and St. Nick, you do seem to have, maybe it's the color, I don't know, that jumps from each film. Like, it's a signature that I can't put my eye on, and I don't know if it's because you have a background in cinematography and you get colors and you get, look. Because, I mean, this seems timeless even though it's set, obviously, in a specific time frame.
Yeah. I mean, and the funny thing with St. Nick was like people never knew what time. Like there were a couple reviews.
Still can't tell.
A couple reviews said it was post-apocalyptic, and I was like, well, you can see other cars. But that's great. I mean, that's what we set out to do. I think like I'm not a good cinematographer, but I feel that I do understand to some extent like how light works and how to use it, and then I just let other people who are better at it actually do the job. At this point, like I will never DP another movie because it didn't work very well. But editing was something that definitely has affected how I direct. And I think anything that I do as a director is directly influenced by the way I think about movies as an editor. Because once you get engulfed in that process, it's impossible to not think that way. And I think so much in terms of how movies are structured and how the rhythm plays out. And even when I'm writing a script, I'm thinking about how one scene is going to just play off another and how they're going to bounce together and how this scene might resonate with this other one further down the road. And that's something that, definitely has come about because I'm an editor. And also just the pace and the rhythm and all of those things, once you have cut a movie that way, like it's hard to not think that way. And it's also hard not to edit the movies yourself, which is the first thing I did with working with other editors. And it was tricky because it's like I was saying earlier with writing, you just need to get it in line with what you're doing. You need to grab it all yourself and just wrestle it into the position it needs to be for it to make sense to you. And I wanted to have the experience of working with other editors, but what I realized was that knowing how to do it yourself, it's just so much faster to just grab it and do it yourself than it is to try to explain to somebody else. The benefit you do get from working with other editors is they bring ideas to the table you wouldn't have considered. And as long as those ideas are coming, it's great. But when they stop, then it's like, okay, go away. I'm going to work by myself for a while. It'll be more efficient.